Talking to some of the best names in contemporary Christian music. This is the Hope FM Artist Interview.
And welcome to this week's episode of the Artist Interview, a podcast from Hope FM. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm your host, Gordon T, and I get to talk to some of the stars from the world of contemporary Christian music. And often we're in the States because many of the big artists are there. But I'm really pleased to say that this week we're bringing to you a really great guy from a band that many of you will have heard of that've made a big impact here in the UK. It's none other than Lindz West from LZ7. It's still excited. It's going to be great. Hey, Lindz, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Sorry, I got too excited from the off. I was like, yeah. Oh no. You're introducing the song. Sorry.
It's absolutely fine. It's a total pleasure having you here on Hope FM. We play your music. You guys have got a great message and some amazing tracks as well. Before we talk too much about LZ7, though, would it be okay if we chat a little bit about your own personal story and how you came to know Jesus and how that all worked in with becoming a professional musician as well?
Yeah. I think there's so many different walks in life that people can take, and I was definitely party boy, sport boy, into everything that was going when I was a kid. And I was just talking to my son a second ago and saying, at 10 years of age, I was out playing football, kicking a ball for an hour to myself just because I wanted to play some sort of pro sport at something. And so that was me. That was kind of like weekends, evenings. And my parents used to work for Billy Graham when I was born, and they moved out to Belgium for the first 2 years of my life on tour doing a festival organisation for him across like all the major cities. And Billy Graham was like a massive evangelist. And I think that kind of bred something in me, or passed some sort of DNA on, that I would do something like that. But little did I know it. And I know there'll be some listeners out there listening thinking, I don't have any kind of like understanding or calling. I don't know what I'm going to do in my life. And so when I got to 15, I was like, I want to be a pilot. I want to be a PE teacher. I love sport. I was playing like basketball for like schools, and I was playing football at a high level, and I was playing table tennis at a high level, and I was getting involved in all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh no, now I want to become I'm well into my music. I want to become a DJ. So I started DJing with my mate with a bunch of camouflage netting in his front room. And we just started getting really into music. So there was like these two loves in my life, which was DJ and music, and kind of like dance music, hip hop, and then sport. And then obviously Jesus was the third one, but he kind of took a bit of a back seat because I was so focused on everything else. And it wasn't that I wasn't a Christian. I was just a bit like, I'm going to get on with this. But I used to go to this event once a month in the centre of London called Interface. And
hold on a moment. You used to go to Interface. What, in Ewell?
Tolworth Recreation Centre, yeah, Ewell. no.
Okay, yeah, so yeah. What years were you going there?
I must have been 10, 11 till I was about 14, 15.
So what years is that then?
When was that? That was like 96, 97, 94, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, something like that.
Okay, so we were probably there. We were probably there at the same time.
Oh wow, come on now.
So with Russ. Russ was on the DJ.
Russ
Oliver.
He was one of those dudes that I fully looked up to. I bumped into him at a wedding recently, and I was like, bro, you don't understand the impact you had on my life. Like, you'll never understand how much influence you had when you got up and you spoke and you shared stuff and you messed around and you just made being a Christian cool. So I'd go to Interface, then I'd go back to kind of like football and sport and everything like that. But Interface was the one thing that kind of kept me not on the straight and narrow, but it just helped my faith when I was a kid. And I didn't really engage with church loads. I used to go to youth group, but then I went off to university, and I had a kind of scholarship and a placement program over in America to play basketball. And I was like, oh, this is the dream. Like, this is the one. This is the thing. And this is the thing I've dreamed of, and it's the one thing I was going for. And when I went to university, I didn't take myself to church. I didn't take myself to Christian Union. But when I went to Chicago, I went to Illinois State University. I took myself to Campus Crusade, and I went down. And like I said, I'm playing basketball. I'm there to kind of like get better at it because that's what I wanted to do. But I just knew that God had my number somehow, and I didn't know how, and I didn't know why. And I said to a few lads and a few like guys on our dorm, I said, do you fancy going to spring break? And it's down in Pensacola, which is Panama City Beach. And at the time, there was this thing called the Pensacola Revival that I knew nothing about. But I went down to Panama City Beach like some kind of MTV teenager that was going down there to have an absolute rave. And there was this girl in Campus Crusade called Amber. And Amber had said, I'm going down there. I'm going on a beach mission. And I was like, well, I'm going to avoid you because I know exactly what that means. That means you're going to try and get me to go to one of the meetings and I'm going to get zapped by the Holy Spirit. I understood exactly what it meant, right? So one day on the beach, we're sat, and what we used to do was we'd sink a keg of beer into the sand to keep it cold. And then you'd tap off the beer. So we'd go surfing, we'd come back out, we'd have a beer. So I'm sat and it's like sun shining. And just at the corner of my eye, I can see Amber walking towards me. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do? Oh, awkward, like, get out of here, get out. And she came and sat on the end of my bench. She said, Lindz. And I was like, hi, Amber. And she said, come to the event tonight, man. We've got a band playing. Like, come down and have a listen. I was like, no, it's not my thing, man. It's like, honestly, I'm chill, man. It's good. And she's like, no, Lindz, listen, no more beers. Meet me in the car park. I'm going to come pick you up. 6 p.m. So I was like, all right, okay, I'll come down. So Amber comes, picks me up. And I go down to this event. The guy gets up and speaks and he preaches. And then this band came out. And I'm stood at the back. And I'm looking at the band thinking, I feel like I know you. Like, I feel like I recognize you lot. And they get up and it's a band called the Newsboys. And they start singing this song, Shine, Make You Wonder What You Got. And I was like, oh, that's quite a catchy song. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure my mum gave me 2 CDs before I left for university. One of them was DC Talk and the other one was Newsboys to try and get me to listen to Christian music. And I remember chucking them out of the window on the motorway on the M4 and just going, nah, mum, not having it. Because my mum had really tried, I was like, not having it. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I know who this guy is. And it was like, the Newsboys, the original lineup and that stuff. And I came back from university after I'd finished and graduated from America and come back to England. And the 2 CDs that I'd thrown out, I went upstairs into the loft, into the attic, and I had all my CDs racked up. And the 2 CDs that I'd thrown out, one of them was sat on the end of my CD rack, and it was the Newsboys. And I picked it up, and I'm like, hang on, what the heck's going on here? I met them in Panama City. Why is their CD here? I threw their CD out on the M4 last time I came back to London. I'm like, what? I couldn't get my head around it, but I knew that God had my number, and I knew that something was going on. So I graduated from uni. I moved back to London from Cardiff because I graduated in Cardiff, and I had a job in the city working as a marketing exec and living the life. Like, it was a great job, it was a graduate scheme. I was earning lots of money, and I had nice cars because I was working for Audi cars. So I'd get a new car every couple of weeks and take it for test drives and take people for test drives, and it was like living the dream. And I'm sat in this restaurant after an exec meeting, and I was like, something's not fitting right here. Something's not sitting right. Like, there's a guy complaining in this group about a £60,000 car and the windscreen wiper doesn't work. And yet I know there's people in Haiti that are dying because they can't get water. And I'm like, it just, nothing's adding. And this was another one of those moments when you got to have a number. And he said, I feel like you might be wasted in this job, bro. I feel like he's not a Christian. He said, I feel like something's going to click and you're going to go and do something else. So I took myself off to Soul Survivor with the church youth group. And I'm stood, watching this band called the Worldwide Message Tribe, and I turned up late because I went on a big party to Magaluf with 20 lads, and I turned up late to Soul Survivor. And
so how old are you at this point?
22, 21, okay. 22, so just graduated. And I'm walking past this venue, and they're playing this like proper house music. So I'm like, I've just come back from Magaluf listening to this, and they're playing it at Soul Survivor. So I walk in at the back, and these guys get up, and then this one guy gets up and starts spinning on his head. And then he says this story. He says, I was in Ibiza and, I'd done this dodgy drug deal, and someone tied me to a chair and threw me into the pool. And he said, and I just screamed out, God help me. Half an hour later, I'm sat still tied to the chair, but I'm dripping by the side of the pool, out of the pool. And I don't know how I got there. Anyway, I came back from Ibiza and I took myself to church. I felt like I would come back from Magaluf and I was taking myself to church because God had my number. And I'm down the front, giving my life back to Jesus, like sobbing my eyes out, because this guy had used his music, and then what he'd said in between the music had fully connected me. But I respected him because he was breakdancing and MCing and all this stuff. The year later, I go back to Soul Survivor to work as a detached youth worker on the skate parks and around and about. And the same band get up, and I'm stood there with my brother, and he says, and he says they're auditioning for a new member, and he elbows me in the ribs, and he goes, "You should do that." And I was like, "What? Why would I do that?" And he said, because you can do a backflip and you can rap and you're well into that stuff. That's your vibe. And he elbowed me again. And I was like, bruv, have you seen how far Manchester is north? Like, I'll get a nosebleed going that far north. That's too far, man. I'm not going that far. And he was like, no, audition. So anyway, I auditioned. And 5 days later, after Soul Survivor, I find myself packing my bag and moving to Manchester to join the Worldwide Message Tribe. So this whole journey was God had my number the whole time. And there was a guy called Cameron that was in the tribe who had preached his testimony and his story, but it was his story that happened in between the songs. And basically, that's how I became a Christian, or gave my life back to God after becoming a Christian when I was like 8 or 9, and then again at probably 15. But this was like the proper moment. And then I find myself in the band that's taken me back to Jesus, doing the same stuff that the guy did to me, and now learning how to do it for other people. And that's where LZ7 came from. And that's pretty much the model that we do now.
But for those who don't know LZ7, now we've heard a little bit about Lindz West and your story of how you encountered God and became to be part of the Worldwide Message Tribe. Tell us a little bit about LZ7's journey then.
So the Worldwide Message Tribe finished, and the lads were kind of like, we're going to start these citywide hubs called Eden, where we move youth workers into the areas and we do all this stuff. And I was going to go and join a band called the Band With No Name, and I was at the end of the tribe gig, and I just thought, nah, the method might well change, but the message of Jesus doesn't. So the message of the cross, the message of grace and love and hope, and the way he died, that doesn't change. But the method of delivering this stuff does. So I went running back to my boss, Andy Hawthorne, and I was like, I think I might be making a mistake. I feel like I've been sent to Manchester to be a missionary in Manchester to the nations. I feel like we need to do something else. God's really put it on my heart. And literally that day we came up with LZ7, and that day came up with a lightning strike off this lightning strike that you see here, that logo. Yep. Was basically, we had a mouse mat, an old school mouse mat in front of us, and it had a circle on it, and we drew the LZ7 in the middle of it. And someone drew it, and she was like, look, 7 is the number for completion, and LZ is the first and last letter of your name. LZ7, it means that a person is completed whole, and it's circular. And I'm like, that's flipping genius. We're doing that. So ran back to Andy and started it. And I was like, but the method's different. Like, we need to do something different. I really want to try this out. And maybe we should try prisons. And I love Johnny Cash, and I grew up listening to him with my dad. And I was like, let's try that. Let's have a go. So our first gig, honestly, Gordon, 400 prisoners, young offenders, 18 to 21, sat there screw facing. That means they kind of like impress me, come in with their tats all over themselves, gangs separated. And I'm stood there, and I know I look like Chef Ramsay's little brother. And I'm stood there, and I went green before we went on. And I set up the system, and I set up all the gear. And these lads came in, sat down. And it was silent. And I turned the system on, and within about 30 seconds, all the lads start looking at each other like, what's going on? 2 lads jumped up at the back. One starts breakdancing. The other one high fives him and turns around and runs to the front of the hall. And I think as he runs past me, I think he's going to jaw me on the way past, like smack me, because this was, I don't know, offending him. And he didn't. He ran past me, and he ran up the wall and did a backflip. And that was it. The whole place went off. It erupted. And I saw these lads like breakdance, doing a worm, climbing up the things, back flipping off them, bouncing around. And this kid came out, and I was like, what was that? And he goes, oh, bruv, you don't understand. We're locked up for 23 hours of the day. And we had an hour with you, and you just turned us into 12-year-old boys again. There was something so freeing in that music. Like, there was freedom in that stuff. And what you said in between about God never letting us go. So that absolutely, it just moved us. So these lads, and I'm there like literally needing to go to the toilet because I was panicking. And I was like, oh, wow, that really works. So we started our journey in prisons. And then we wrote this song called Little Light of Mine in 2010. We did a couple of years in prisons. And then we thought, oh, well, there's a couple of bands doing some stuff. Let's go and open for them. And, we'll help them out, and we'll do Little Light. And, it can't be that hard in schools. Let's go and have a few schools. Anyway, Little Light started to get this traction, started to go viral. Kids started singing it. And then we just thought, right, we'll drop it in the charts. So 2010 was kind of our official start. We've been working in prisons and schools beforehand. But 2010 was when we fully launched, and we booked the Manchester Apollo. We did a 50-date school tour and packed the Apollo out. Like, couldn't sell any more tickets. And that night, the song dropped into the top 40 at number 26.
But I imagine that there's lots of different stories you've got from in schools and in all the different arenas you've been. Is there maybe 1 or 2 stories that just stand out in your mind as things you go, wow, that was just a God moment?
Yeah. So on on the last tour, we did Manchester just before Christmas, the last last week of term. And obviously COVID had thrown a right curveball at it. So mid-tour, we were told no one can mix, they have to wear masks. And then we're in one school, and we go to another one. And our schools look like a gig, like it's a mosh pit. We set up the biggest kit, screens, and invite the kids down the front. They just go bananas, and the teachers love it because they're having so much fun. But there's also this positive message on mental health, self-esteem, anti-suicide, bullying, knife crime, anything they want us to focus on. We'll talk about it and give our perspective on it. And it's real moving. So this kid came up to me after one lesson. She goes, I'm electrified. I'm so inspired. I'm electrified. There's electric buzzing through my body. And that was a year 7 after lesson 1, right? And then the final school was on the Friday. And this little lad, Jaden, was just in tears, and he was just crying his eyes out, and he couldn't console himself because he was, and we talked a little bit about jumping off the roller coaster of life and about never giving up. And we do this community stand where we get everybody to make a choice to become part of the change. And everybody, you'll see the whole year group stand up, and teachers are looking at me going, they're never standing up. And the whole of year 10 will stand up because they're so inspired by it. But this kid, Jaden, he's in bits. And I walked over to him and put my arm around him, and I just went, hey bro, what's going on? He goes, oh, you don't understand, I've set a date to jump off the roller coaster of life. And I said, and he's year 7. I said, when's that? And he says, tonight after the show. And I'm like, oh man. So I went, don't ever think about that. Don't think like that. Someone's here for you. I'm here for you. We care about you. We're bothered. And he goes, I know, but it's the people in the class and give me so much chip and yada, yada. And as I said that, this redheaded girl, taller than him, like by about this much, came walking over. And she said, Jaden, I'm really sorry, man. So I'm bothered about you. I'm really sorry for bullying you. I'm sorry for giving you a hard time. And put her arm around him and said, I'll come to the show. So I went, I'll tell you what, here's 2 free tickets. Come down to the show tonight in Audacious Church in Manchester. So we get to the night, and guess who's on the front row, just like arm over the barrier, not even being able to reach over the barrier with his head on it. There's little Jaden and the redhead girl. And they both, at the end of the show, responded to Jesus, gave their lives to the Lord. Then Sunday, we did a follow-up back at Audacious Church and said, if you've responded tonight, come back. I'm going to be sharing a couple of songs, sharing a little bit of a story. Come back. And they both came back. So that was just 3 weeks ago. So it just blows my mind. The gospel works, and God just transforms minds. So I'm just blown away by stuff like that.
Going further into the future, next 10 years, where do you hope to be in 10 years' time?
So I definitely want to pass the baton on, raise up, leave a legacy with other evangelists. So I'm bringing up a load now. So Saints being the first one, for people that are going to carry the baton on and carry on doing what we're doing.
So what's Saints like, out of interest? Because I'm not familiar with Saints. Give us a quick précis of Saints.
Quick précis. Kind of big drops, trappy happy, very positive, uplifting, not quite as EDM as LZ7, not quite as hard as LZ7, a bit more sort of pop friendly, but really good. Like you'll see him at Big Church Out. You'll like him. And the girl who fronts it is my goddaughter, who is the daughter of the guys that I was in the tribe with. How mad's that?
So the girl who fronts it,
Saints, is my goddaughter, but she's the daughter of the guys that were in the tribe with me.
That is so cool.
It's mad, isn't it? So it's kind of passing the legacy on in the family way as well. So yeah, I mean, I'll be developing that stuff. I'm looking to take Illuminate into its own festival. So we'll have a big festival ourselves that's youth focused. So all of the Illuminate tours happen, and then as part of their discipleship, we'll siphon the kids into this festival where it's part of their, their new walk with Jesus. And youth groups, get tickets for discounted prices and turn Big Church Day Out into one big, massive party venue for young people for the following days after Big Church finishes. So that's the dream at the moment.
It's a good dream.
Kind of working through the logistics of it, which is great. It's good fun. So pray for us.
You've been watching The Artist Interview. For the full podcast, click the links below or visit hopefm.com/The Artist Interview.